Hello BookTube, my name is Kate. This is my channel, Chapter Kate. I am at a different angle today because I'm finally getting more stuff on this wall. And at some point it'll be nice and finished, but at the moment it's just better than it was last time. So I'm trying a different angle. Alright, so today I'm going to be doing a used book haul. I actually typically buy more used books than new books. There are two used bookstores that me and my husband like to go to a lot, and then we'll kind of stop by both of those, and then we'll stop by Barnes & Noble, and then maybe a couple of the comic book shops. We have like a little routine when we want to go book shopping. And so all of these are from those bookstores. A couple of them I got online and they're used, but most of them are from those two stores. I have 33 books total. There's a mix of fiction and non-fiction. There are a couple of comic books in there. One thing is really exciting because I've been wanting it for my collection forever, so I'm so excited to finally have it for my collection. Speaking of, since this is one of my hauls, I wanted to just give the disclaimer that I'm a book collector along with a reader. The two hobbies don't have to go together. Personally, I love collecting books, but I also love reading books. It's two different hobbies for me. Book collecting is also a shared hobby with my husband. We have a large library because we like to collect together. That's something that we really enjoy. And with that, let's get into it. The first three books that I want to talk about are all books by Oliver Sacks. Oliver Sacks was the professor of neurology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. And within the music therapy community, since I'm a music therapist, we hear about him a lot because he did a lot of studies with music and the brain and how those two interact, which a ton of music therapy is based on music psychology. The primary book that covers all of that, if you're interested, is Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. And I read it, I think, last November for NonFiction November, and I'd been holding on to it for so long, I finally just read the whole thing, and it was so interesting. There's a lot of music talk, and there's a lot of neurology talk, so if you have a background in those, it'll make it a lot easier to read. But even if you don't have backgrounds in those things, I feel like the way that he wrote makes it palatable for those that might not have the full background knowledge of those two subjects. As for these three books, I'm just going to go over them one at a time. So this book is Hallucinations. This book kind of addresses the fact that hallucinations are almost always associated with mental illness, whereas hallucinations can also occur in other, ways. It's actually a natural part of human experience. Hallucinations can occur with really intense migraines, but also substances, injuries, sensory deprivation. There's a lot of different things that can cause hallucinations. So this kind of covers that topic. The next one is Seeing Voices. This is all about how psychosis is experienced by people who are deaf. I've had patients that are deaf, and I've had patients that experience, hearing voices. There are often deaf individuals who say that they hear voices. So a lot of people might wonder, how do you hear voices if you don't have that particular sense? So this book sort of delves into how hallucinations sort of work within the brain. The next book is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. This is probably Oliver Sacks' most popular work. And this is all about neurological and intellectual aberrations. So it tells stories of different experiences that people might have when their brains don't act the way that you feel like they're supposed to. And the thing is that a lot of mental illnesses and neurological disorders and traumatic brain injuries, a lot of these things are sensationalized by media. And I really like the way that Oliver Sacks writes about these sort of situations because he does it with a very sympathetic and humanizing voice. He doesn't patronize, he doesn't make it into trauma porn or, inspiration porn. He doesn't do that. He makes it a real situation that is experienced by real people. Next we have Talk the Talk, The Slang of 65 American Subcultures by Luke Reed. This is a really interesting little reference book. So this has, just like the cover says, this has 65 different subcultures in America, and then it talks about the language behind those subcultures. So a couple of those cultures include surfers, UFO believers, furries, gardeners, prisoners, pro wrestling fans, historical reenactors, model builders, and radio-controlled model enthusiasts. All kinds of stuff. So it's really interesting if you like to get to know different sort of groups. It's a really cool way to do that. Then I have these two books. They're very old looking. I don't know when they were actually published. They actually have someone's name in them. So these were both published in 1932, and they are filled with lyrics. And they're written, I think, in Middle English, I want to say, which is interesting. I think it's Middle English. So this one's English lyrics of the 13th century, edited by Carlton Brown. And so basically all of the lyrics are written in Middle English, I believe. I haven't read Middle English since college. So I can't read it very well, but I thought it'd be a really good way to refresh that sort of, knowledge. And then I also have secular lyrics of the, I always have to pause for my Roman numerals, which is ironic considering I have Roman numerals in my channel name. So I have secular lyrics of the 14th and 15th centuries edited by Russell Hope Robbins, 2nd edition. So these are both 2nd editions? I don't know. I'm guessing because they look like they came together. I don't know. But they're both written in Middle English, and so it's just a good way to sort of refresh that. I really hope it's Middle English. I don't think it's Old English. I don't know. There's this one song that all music people have to like learn when they, go and do music majory stuff, and it's Sumer is a kuminin. And it's like, Sumer is a kuminin, something sing cuckoo. I don't really know. I don't know. But it's written, I think, in Old English.
Nope, it's Middle English too.
I can't ever remember the difference. So maybe this will help once I Google and figure it out. And since we're on the topic of music, the next one is Mr. Schubert here. So this is Schubert by George R. Marek, and this is just all about the composer Schubert. I fell in love with Schubert in college when I was doing music history, and then I did this class called Song, Lyrics, and Poetry, and it was all about composers and how they set poetry to music. And I loved Schubert the most because he did something called text painting, and that's when you make the music sort of illustrate what the words are saying. So maybe when you say the word fall, you hear sort of the notes go downwards, so it might be like fall, or something like that. And I really loved that. So when I was composing in college, which is just what bipolar musicians do, it's just what we do, ask Schumann. And I think Handel? I don't know. A lot of composers had some issues. But he did a lot of just really cool stuff like that. I love symbolism, so I would like analyze it and be like, oh, he says the number 5, and then there's a 5 chord here, and like I way overanalyzed it. But he was a genius, and so I just really liked reading about Schubert. So he's my man. Next is Beethoven's Hair, and this is by Russell Martin. And this is the story of how Beethoven went through the experience of hearing loss while being a musician and becoming more and more frustrated with himself. There's also this really weird story about a piece of his hair. Like someone clipped a lock of his hair and it was like passed down through the family, and so it also goes over sort of what happened to his hair. I don't know, it seems interesting. Plus, I just really love romantic composers. When you think of classical music, there's a lot more than just classical music. Romantic composers are those that have really dramatic, music. So for example, when you hear Beethoven, it's really dramatic. I love romantic composers. They're just they're my jam. And then the last of my music biographies is Chopin in Paris. Tad Sulk, who was the author of Pope John Paul II. So I'm guessing he is a biography guy. Chopin in Paris, The Life and Times of the Romantic Composer. So when I think of like slow, calming piano music, I always think of Chopin first. If you look up Chopin's Nocturnes, it's gonna be some of the most calming music, and it is the best music for me to like read to, or if I just want to do work and I don't want to hear like words, his music is the kind of my go-to. Because it's also not too exciting, where Beethoven can get a little bit dramatic over there. He's a little much sometimes. Chopin is very gentle and calm. Beethoven has some calm stuff, Moonlight Sonata, things like that, but if you want calm and you want a guarantee of that, I would just type in Chopin's Nocturnes and go with it. So I'm really interested to learn more about him because I really don't know a lot about Chopin. And then we have these 3 bad boys, and these are Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know what they are by Edgar Allan Poe. My husband picked these out. He wants me to learn German really bad, and this is Edgar Allan Poe in German. So I'm not sure if it's like his poems, if it's his stories. I don't really know, but they look super cool. Like, look at this. They're super shiny, so the ring light's making them a little difficult. I'm guessing this one has the golden bug in it because it's got the bug on the front. But they're really cool. I'm excited to kind of look at them. I don't know how much I'll actually read in them because they're in German. We have a lot of books that are in other languages, and they're things that we enjoy, and we figured it would be a really great way, since they're languages that we are learning, or even just things we want to learn a little bit of, because we have a lot of interest in language. We learned a little bit of Norwegian. We went to Norway. We like to learn Gaelic, even though it's really hard. And he likes German. He's very into learning about your past and learning about, the cultures of your ancestors, and he has a lot more access to that than I do. And so since he has like German ancestors and stuff, that's, that's the language he likes, and so he wants me to learn German too, and I am terrible at it. So bad at it. Next we have Who's a Good Boy? So I love the Welcome to Night Vale books. I really like those. This, however, is just the podcast Welcome to Night Vale typed out. And I have the first 2, so I went ahead and bought this one. The third one I haven't found yet, but this one was used and it was a third of the price that it usually would be, so I went ahead and got it because I am planning to collect all of them. And so I just went ahead and got the 4th one because I got it for cheaper. And then we have a couple of comic books. This one is Clive Barker, The Great and Secret Show. It says The Complete Great and Secret Show, so I don't know much about the comic series itself, but it's all of them in one, which is nice. It discusses it being a great battle of good and evil that spans various dimensions and stuff, so it's gonna be one of those. I just think it's interesting because the front has the aurora on it, but also this mailbox. But if you look at the mailbox from afar, it looks like Mjolnir. If you look at it up close, you can see that it's a mailbox. But also the aurora you can see very visibly in Norway. And so I'm wondering if it's referencing Thor. But then it also says US mail. So I don't know. And then we have Terry Pratchett, the Discworld graphic novels, The Color of Magic, and The Light Fantastic. So this is a couple of the Discworld novels in a graphic novel format, which I honestly just thought would be really entertaining because just to see Death hanging out, you know, I feel like it'd be amusing because the Discworld books are just funny in general and absurdist, and so I feel like that would lend itself really well to graphic novel form. Oh, and I forgot my last nonfiction book. Well, I guess it's books. So this is something that I've been wanting for a really long time, but it's expensive, so I was like, I'm not gonna get it because it's expensive, and I was gonna wait until I could find it affordably. And then I finally found one that was a little bit more affordable, and I went ahead and bought it, but then they emailed me and they were like, this isn't really available, sorry, this is weird. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I told myself that once I passed my certification exam, that I would buy it for myself. And I would try again. And so I tried again, and then the website that I was trying to order it from never would process my money. So I was like, okay. So I waited again, and I finally found it for I wouldn't say affordable, but an acceptable price for something that's a collectible for me. And I finally got it for myself, so I'm so excited about it. It actually just came in today, and I was already planning to film this video. And here she is. Look at how beautiful she is. So this is actually a 3-volume collection of all of the letters of Vincent van Gogh. I'm gonna set her right here because she's a hefty boy. Yeah. So basically a lot of the information that we know about Vincent van Gogh is a collection of the letters that he sent to his brother. And so the collection of his letters is very biographical. It tells us a lot about him and his life. And Vincent van Gogh has always been someone who I felt really connected with, as someone who has mental illnesses and does creative things and has creative ventures. I really related to like so many things that I've read about him. And I really love his artwork. A lot of people love Starry Night, and when I first saw it, I fell in love with that painting as well. But after looking at more and more of his paintings and learning more about him, my favorite painting by him is actually the Almond Blossoms painting. And my reasoning for that is because he felt that almond blossoms, they represented like hope. And I think that it's something that really amazing to have when you have such difficult mental illnesses, to find hope in things. And so that's, you know, just something, a little tidbit about Mr. Van Gogh and my relationship with him. So that's the type of book that I love to have in my collection, and that I would definitely use more as like a resource kind of type book. It's not something that I'm going to sit there and like read cover to cover unless I just feel like it. But it's something that I want to like be able to pick up and like look through and like just go to a random page and learn more about him and things like that. And that's something I really love about having nonfiction books. Some are written in a way that I just want to read it all the way through, and others are written in a way that I want to use it as like a resource. And next we have this. This is Selected Stories from the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. If you look at it, I just thought it was like really cool. It sort of had the Spanish art style going on. And it's just really, I just thought it was interesting. I thought that the Canterbury Tales were super cool after first seeing A Knight's Tale when I was in high school and thinking that Heath Ledger was awesome. I was also huge into Batman, still am, so didn't grow out of that. But I just fell in love with this. I thought it was gorgeous, and I was like, I'm always looking for really pretty like classics, and I thought this would be great to have in my collection. But I will say it's kind of written in a way that it's supposed to appeal to young people. And it says young readers, so I'm assuming like children. And I don't like that. I don't like that it's probably going to be edited that way, but we'll live, we'll survive, because it's just a neat thing to have, in my opinion. Like, that's the kind of stuff I like to have in my collection. When I talk about book collecting, that's what I'm looking for usually, is really unique things like that. And then speaking of classics, I also have A Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. If you haven't heard about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there's basically this dude who is one way, but then he uses this weird concoction to make himself another way, and they're very different personalities. Now, some people actually abuse this book and use it as a way of stigmatizing people with dissociative identity disorder, but I'm here to tell you that this is not the same thing. But I actually already have a copy of this, like a really boring looking copy, and I wanted this one because it's bigger and things are spread out a little bit more, and it's already got writing in it. So I figured this would be a great way to have something to annotate, because I know I'm probably eventually going to be reading this with my Goth Lit Club, and I wanted a way to annotate. And also I thought it was kind of cool because the cover reminds me of sort of a playbill. I really, really hope I like this better than I like Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, because Treasure Island can die. And on the topic of Gothic literature, I also got these two things. These are both by Daphne du Maurier. This is Rebecca, and then this is The Scapegoat. When I first started reading Gothic literature, I asked, people for recommendations, and everybody said to read Rebecca. I still haven't. So it's about time. A lot of people said that Mexican Gothic has a lot of Rebecca references. And so Rebecca is a young woman who marries this older widower and then finds out that his house is haunted with the spirit of his dead wife. So I'm interested, because I would definitely haunt this house. And then we have The Scapegoat. I thought this was interesting because it looked like one of those, like, what's it called? Corset rippers? Is that a thing? Corset rippers? I don't know. Because it's got the shirtless man on the cover with a lady and nothing but a sheet. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think, but the thing on the top says, a dazzling, clever, and immensely entertaining novel, better than Rebecca. Doubt it, but I'm interested. So in this, there's these two guys who look exactly alike, and then one of them wakes up the next morning and finds out he's been drugged and his, I think, identity's been stolen by this other guy. If you read it and that's completely wrong, sorry man, I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, that sounds interesting. It's called The Scapegoat, so that would make sense. Maybe he's like framing him for something. And a few more classics. We have some Charles Dickens. I saw these and I thought they were gorgeous, and I really, really liked Charles Dickens' writing. I read A Christmas Carol last year, and I really, really enjoyed his writing. I also read Great Expectations like a long time ago. I have a weird story with Great Expectations. I remember seeing it on Wishbone. I don't know if y'all know of the show Wishbone. There's this little dog and he runs around and you basically learn literature through him. He dresses up as the characters. It's very odd. So I had seen an episode, I feel like, of that where they did Great Expectations, but then in second grade, I went to a private school, okay, we did weird stuff. So in second grade we read that and I knew what the ending was, and I was like, why do I know the ending? And then I realized it was because of Wishbone. And then when I was in 8th grade, I was actually taking a college level English class in 8th grade, and we read it again and I was like, I'm tired of this story. It's been 84 years and I'm tired of this story. But I did think it was really well written and really interesting, and I loved his sense of humor in A Christmas Carol. So I'm excited to read more by Charles Dickens. Plus, I work with a psychologist who is obsessed with Charles Dickens, and he collects like first editions of things, and he's great. And so I got here David Copperfield, Nicholas Nickleby, and then sketches. So there's like short stories and things by Charles Dickens. And they look all nice. Look at this nice like fabric-y kind of binding. I love them. It's a nice forest green color. I love it. And then the last sort of classic is A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. Got such a retro vibe going on. I have like a really crappy version of Sherlock Holmes where it's like tiny. It's like this pocket-sized book that I got when I was really young, and I got one for Edgar Allan Poe and then I got one for Sherlock Holmes. And the text is super, super tiny and I can't really read it. I wanted to get this because I thought it would be a nice way to finally read Sherlock Holmes. Also, I felt like because it's got like a mark on the side and because it's like old and stuff like that, that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable annotating it. And I'm trying to annotate because I want to do it really bad, but I'm scared. Then I have these, and these are all Hannibal. So the first one is Hannibal by Thomas Harris, and this thing is gigantic. The other three are paperbacks, mass market paperbacks, and none of them match because I was like, if I can't get a whole set of matching ones, then I want them all to not match. I actually wanted to get a paperback version of the first one, but the hardback was cheaper than the paperback version for some reason. I don't know why, but we're just gonna accept it because it was like $3. And the reason I got this is because I was rewatching Hannibal, as one does, because it's a piece of art, and I was like, this reminds me of Gothic literature. And so then I started a Gothic literature book club. And then I was like, well, why don't I just read Hannibal? Because it's an actual book. So I got it. I don't know actually the order of the books. So I think it's Hannibal, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Rising, and then Red Dragon. But I might be wrong. I might have to like go over that and stuff. But if you're unfamiliar with Hannibal, he's a cannibal, but he's also a really posh dude. So it's kind of creates this sort of dissonance between what his character is and then what he does. I'm not 100% sure how much is the same between the show, the movies, and the books. I'm not super sure what consistency there is between the three, so I can't really give a great representation of it. He's a cannibal, okay? And then lastly, we have this adult fantasy trilogy. This actually, my husband picked this out. He likes fantasy series, like high fantasy series. The issue is that I have a hard time actually reading the titles because of the way that they look, but they're kind of fun. But they're really heavy, and I don't know why they're so heavy. Let's just grab the first one. So this is the First Law series, and book 1 is called The Blade Itself, and it's by Joe Abercrombie. The characters include Logan Ninefingers, Nobleman, Inquisitor Galacta, Enter the Wizard Baez, and Murderous Conspiracies. I feel like those weren't all characters, it was just the bolded words on the back. But Logan Ninefingers is apparently a barbarian who has had one too many close calls, and he's now about to become a dead barbarian. And so I'm not sure what else is going on there, but I do know that I'm really excited about kind of finding more out about Logan Ninefingers and where he got that name and how he lost a finger. But that's all my books for this used book haul. Let me know if you have any interest in any of the nonfiction topics that I discussed, or if you have read any of the books in general that I discussed, and did you like them? Did you hate them? Let me know. Break my heart. That's all for this video. If you would like more of this junk, please subscribe below. Bye!
Tripping over shadows and I'm drowning in the night. I feel the soldiers coming and I'm putting up a fight.